Now that we're back from break, I want to take the opportunity to go over some things that are showing up repeatedly in submissions for the annotated bibliography assignment. And part of it may be that I didn't explain it well enough to begin with, so I'm going to go through this step by step and ask you to follow through with me on this, just in case there is something that you're missing. The first thing in any MLA document is you need to have that header up in the upper right-hand corner. And that consists of your last name and the page number. And I'm going to go through with you after this how to set up an MLA document step by step as well. So if you're not sure how to get that header in there, I am going to explain that later. Following the header, you need a heading in MLA. And that is your name, my name, the course name, and if you'd include the section there, it would be very helpful. And then the date, written out, not abbreviated. And that date should change every time that you submit an updated version of your document. The next thing is your title, which is annotated bibliography, and that should be centered in an MLA document. The next step after that is the actual citation information from the source that you are citing. And that should look exactly like it would in a works cited page that would follow an MLA document. So it's last name and then first name for an author. If there's more than one author, then the second and subsequent authors go by first name and then last name. This is an article from a journal. So the article title goes in quotation marks and the journal title goes in italics. You'll see that this was retrieved from an online source, so we have to give the URL, but there is no hyperlink there, and then you have to give the date that you accessed that information from the internet. The annotation itself, if we scroll down here, you'll see is indented and all in one line. It's a margin that is set 1 inch in from the ordinary other 1 inch margin that is typical of an MLA document. When you get to the next annotation, you bring it back out to the regular margin. You still use the hanging indent, and then the annotation itself is indented one more tab. The annotation itself should just consist of 2 or 3 sentences summarizing whatever the article was about. And then you also need to include what type of evidence or how it's going to be helpful in your research document when you come to writing that. So in other words, this one says that it offers strong support for the existence of déjà vu, which is what this article was about. The previous annotation says that it may be useful in providing background information, but you need that specific wording at the end of your annotation to make it complete. And if the case is that the article isn't going to be useful because it's too vague or too broad, or the author's not credible, or the website's not credible, it's okay to say that there as well. So hopefully that clears up any misconceptions about what this should look like. You'll see that the page number and the header is on the second page, but the heading should not appear on any subsequent page after the first page. That should be just right there at the very beginning and not again after that. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to actually set up an MLA document. And you need to go to Microsoft Word in your computer, and you're going to open a new document. To get that header on your page, you double click up in the first top inch of your page, and you should get this gray box that says header in the dotted line about an inch below the top of the page. The next thing you're going to do is up at the top of the page, you're going to select page number. You want top of page, and then you want plain number 3. When you click on that, it will automatically put page 1 over on the right-hand side of your document. All you need to do after that is type your name in, hit space, and that's it. After that, you just need to highlight that whole header and change the font to whichever font you're using in your document. I'm asking you to use Verdana, and you want to make it 12 point because Microsoft Word always defaults to Calibri and 11 point font. Once you have that header in there, it will carry over onto every page in your document. So the next page will say read to, or whatever your name is, and so on. Once you've got your header in there, you want to double click below that line again. And now you're back in the body of your document. After you've done that, you need to go to Home again, and you need to change your font again because it won't remember from the header. The header and the body of the document don't really communicate with each other. So you need to change that again to whatever font you're using. It should be a 12 point font. The next thing you do is go over to where the paragraph settings are. And you need to click the drop down and set it for double spacing. The other thing you need to do is you always need to remove that space after the paragraph. This is another default setting in Microsoft Word, and it's not needed, and it's actually incorrect in MLA or APA documents. Everything should be double spaced consistently throughout the document. So remove that space. And then you're just going to create your header. Again, your first name goes at the top. Your professor's name should be below that. The course name and your section. And then whatever the date is. And it can go in this format. That didn't work. Or it can appear in the European style, which is 25 March 2018, and you'll see there's no commas if you use that European notation. The title needs to be centered, as we said, so you're going to center that. And then after your title is in there, you left justify your text again. Now if you want to, for your works cited entries, or in this case your citations for the annotated bibliography, there is a special setting for that hanging indent that can be so difficult to do. And that is located with this little tiny arrow in the paragraph settings. If you click on that, you'll see down here that there's a setting for special indentation. And all you have to do is click hanging and then accept it by clicking OK. And now your citation will automatically have the hanging indent. All right. The next thing that I wanted to go over was the organization of the exploratory essay, because that's the next major writing piece that you're going to be doing. And in your Week 8 folder, there was a file called Purdue OWL, Organizing an Exploratory Essay. And this is the format that I want you to follow for that exploratory essay research proposal. And the first part basically just explains what you are doing, but the structure itself is very clearly delineated right here. So your introduction is going to be where you introduce the problem that you're exploring and then tell why it's important or worthy of looking into. You need to talk about the causes of that problem, not all of them, of course, but some of them, the most important. Institutions and people involved with the problem. We're talking about everybody that is affected by this problem, so you need to think very broadly in this case. Then you might want to mention some of the possible solutions to that problem. You're going to talk about the type of sources that you research during this exploratory process that you've been following. So whether it's scholarly journals, websites, books, any sorts of things that you have used, you should mention them here in the introduction. Each body paragraph should discuss one source that you have used in your exploration up until this point. So out of all of those choices that you used in your annotated bibliographies, you could pick 5 of those if you think they're suitable, and if not, you may have to go outside of those 9 that are in your annotated bibliography. But you should have 5 sources that you discuss in the body of this essay. And you're going to follow the same format for each of these paragraphs. You're going to introduce the source and say why you chose it to use it in your exploration. Possibly it just sounded interesting or sounded like it was going to be helpful. It doesn't need to be a complicated explanation. Then you need to tell what type of information you found in the source that has to do with the problem you're researching, why it's dependable and important, or maybe if it isn't, you need to say that. And then this is the important part, the personal introspection, your own thoughts on how that source helped you, or maybe helped you think differently about the problem. Maybe you've changed your mind now about your approach to it. Or maybe it fell short of your expectations, or maybe it led you in a different direction. Those are all things that you would mention in your discussion of that source within that paragraph. You should try to lay your paragraphs out so that one source logically leads to another so that you can transition well from one source to another. Once you've written your 5 body paragraphs, you need to do your conclusion, of course. First and foremost, please don't start your conclusion with the words "in conclusion." You do need to restate the problem and the causes and all of those same things that you mentioned in the introduction, but you need to say it in a different way. If you have found that you still have things that you need to find out about this problem, and you should, it's okay to have those, that's where you need to bring them up. You should say, I am still lacking information about this possible solution, or this aspect of the cause of the problem, something like that. And then you should say where you might go to find those problems, what type of research you might still need to do. That's all there is to this essay. It's really quite simple. It's laid out very carefully for you, and if you follow these instructions, you should have no difficulty in writing this paper. The length is very appropriate to how many sources I've asked you to discuss. And I think that you will find that it's really not a chore if you use your annotated bibliography information and these guidelines to write the paper. You do have a rough draft due by the 1st of April. I will assign new peer review groups. Please take this peer review process seriously. When you don't do a peer review, you are hurting yourself as well as your classmates. So it's very important that you participate in this process. But again, if someone does not send you their draft for review, it will not be held against you. You will not be penalized for somebody else not complying with the requirements of the assignment. I just need to be aware of that, so please do email me if that's the case. If you have any other questions, please email me.